Days are sacred, watching the tide continue to roll, while at times the rebels simply yell. The aromatic smell of everything that sizzles, and the savory taste of delectable morsels. Style, sights, and sounds interwove. And ah yes, mingling and a walk in the grove. Friend or foe, the reality of what's ahead. Yet hope still fuels the passion. Only time will tell next. From Vaught Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, Mississippi, welcome everyone to the SEC on ESPN. It's ESPN College Football Primetime, presented by Miller Lite, and emerging through the smoke, the Ole Miss Rebels. Let's take a look at the projected mock BCS standings. LSU and Oklahoma at 2 and 3 respectively. Alabama holding down the #1 spot. Remember, these are projected, brought to you by Discover Car. Hello everybody, I'm Mark Jones along with Ed Cunningham. Janine Edwards down on the sidelines joining us in just a few moments. Ed, Alabama comes into this game a prohibitive favorite, a 27-point favorite, leading the nation in so many different categories. Mississippi's had a week off, and Houston Nutt, their head coach, has authored some shocking upsets in the past.
I think when you tune into this game, you think, no way do they have a chance. But when you think about Houston Nutt in his career at Arkansas and Ole Miss, 5 times he has taken unranked teams against teams in the top 5 and come out victorious. They spent all week talking about the last time that happened, which was in 2008 when they went to the Swamp. They'd lost 9 consecutive SEC games. They go into the Swamp against Tim Tebow, a team that went on to win the national championship, and beat them on the road. So they've been pumping that up pretty hard this week.
Alabama and Nick Saban's team coming off a win last week against Vanderbilt kind of stumbled out of the gate a little bit. He says the opponent isn't always on the other side of the field. It's themselves.
At Alabama, they talk about the standard that they want to play. It doesn't matter what uniform the other team is playing. The bad news for Ole Miss is because of that stumble last week, all of the players around the program were talking about how difficult a week of practice it was. I'm not so sure that we're going to see Alabama come out a little slow tonight against Ole Miss.
Well, it has been an interesting, a very turbulent week for Mississippi. And for more on that, let's go downstairs to Janine Edwards.
And Mark, turbulent is a good word, you know, as if facing the #2 team in the nation didn't put enough on their plate. On Thursday, Rebels coach Houston Nutt unexpectedly closed practice to the media, and he then announced that 4 offensive players, including 3 starters, and second leading rusher Brandon Bolden, were suspended for this game for breaking team rules on Wednesday. Nutt said he agonized over the decision. Should he wait a week? He needed all hands on deck for Alabama. But in the end, he decided that actions demand consequences. The team was stunned that he would pull 4 players from tonight's rotation. So the Rebels may feel as though they're swimming against the tide tonight, guys. But Houston Nutt told us that building character was more important than building the stat sheet. That had to be a tough call, though, Ed.
And I think it's a great call, because even in tough times like Ole Miss is going through right now, you have to send the message that rules are rules. So you give him a lot of credit. Along with Bolden, I think the biggest suspension was center A.J. Hawkins, a guy who's been a 2-year starter at the middle against the defense for Alabama that is very multiple, both in their fronts and their blitzes.
Mississippi coming off an impressive win on the road a couple of weeks ago against Fresno State. Rebels will receive the kick. Underway in Oxford. This is Jeff Scott from the 4. Scott, one of their home run hitters, out over the 25 to the 27-yard line, and that is where the 5'11 junior From Scuba, Mississippi, Randall Mackey will make his first SEC start.
Young man who was scheduled to start the beginning of the season, but broke curfew, was suspended against BYU. They actually demoted him down to the scout team. He was #1 through spring, through the summer. But they were happy they were able to get him a start on the road at Fresno State. They got a win that they needed. They get a week off. But let's see what Kirby Smart, the defensive coordinator for Alabama, may have cooked up for this young man.
Mackey was 8 of 18 in his game a couple of weeks ago. Look over the middle, complete. That's Smelly, the tight end, out over the 35 to the 36. A nice gain of about 8 on first down. As we take a look at our impact players, brought to you by Chick-fil-A.
Perhaps the fastest player in the field. He'll go both ways. Nicholas Brassel, a young man that they're going to try to get over the top. And then Evan Swindle is the center who has to come in. Started last year against Alabama, so not totally new, but he's going to be trying to block Josh Chapman, who just happens to be the strongest player on Alabama's team. Pretty tough duty for Swindle.
That was Jamal Mosley with the reception on first down. Little option. And Mackey keeps it to pick up the first down. A 3-yard gain on the play as we take a look at the rest of the Mississippi offense. Jeff Scott, the home run hitter. Greer, the fullback. Jamez Logan, a guy that's going to have a good game today. And the guys up front with a huge task.
And Bradley Saul is a guy who has potentially NFL aspirations. He's a very good left tackle, but this is a group that struggled against Vanderbilt and early in the season, but they have been playing better of late.
Pass downfield, wide open. And out of bounds, first and goal from the 3. It's Brassel.
Very similar to the Florida game for Alabama. This, the third play, not the first play, but look at Brassel's speed. When we were talking to David Lee, the first-year offensive coordinator who was with the Miami Dolphins last year, they got this young man, a true freshman, and he said right away, I knew he had special speed because I didn't have anybody with the Dolphins last year that was as fast as this young man.
Great start, first and goal, the handoff inside. Down to the 1-yard line, it's Devin Thomas. It'll be second and goal, and boy, the Rebels off to a great start here on their opening series of the game, Ed.
And that was another thing that David Lee told us yesterday when we were talking to him, is that Randall Mackey is one of the better deep ball throwers he's ever had. That ball was thrown just a touch behind, but you'd rather have it behind than over. And now, wouldn't be surprised, we've already seen one option. Mackey, a very good athlete, wouldn't be surprised if we see some type of quarterback movement and potentially an option.
On second and goal, Mackey on the pitch. Scott trying to get to the edge. Touchdown, Ole Miss. How quickly pessimism can change even to just a little bit optimism. In just a few short plays, Ole Miss with a 7-0 lead. And all set up by the long play to Nicholas Brassel.
Mackey gets good protection. This offensive line was expected to be a strength. Played much better, ran right by Dean Milner, who was coming over from the safety, and then the option to the right. Good pitch, Scott, little guy, one of the fastest on the team. A good block out on the edge by the fullback, E.J. Epperson, let him get the corner.
And when you talk about what's going on between the ears of those Ole Miss players right now, how much does it do for their confidence to get out board in their first series like that?
It's huge. They had a very physical week of practice. During their bye week, the coach is talking about, hey, we haven't been physical enough to play in this league week in and week out. So they went to work last week, but that's huge. Now it's on your defense to go out. You get a 3-and-out. You keep this crowd in it. And look out, Houston Nutt may have another miracle up his sleeve.
Alabama's defense has only been giving up 7 points a game, tied for #1 in the nation. And they've already surrendered that here in the first couple of minutes of the ball game. Back deep, it's Miss.This and Darius Hanks to get this kick for Alabama. All week long, Houston-Nutt, the head coach for the Rebels, has been reminding his team of the 08 miracle down in the swamp. This is Hanks from the 7. Collared at the 21-yard line and brought down right there. Well, A.J. McCarron, the starting quarterback for the Crimson Tide, completing 65% of his passes on the season. 8 touchdown tosses against 2 interceptions. Both those interceptions came early in the year, and he hasn't thrown a pick in the last 5 games.
Had his best game of his career last week against Vanderbilt, 23 of 30, 4 touchdowns. Really looks comfortable, very decisive with the ball.
Alabama touching the ball for the first time, 1st and 10. Hands it off to Trent Richardson, the Heisman hopeful, out over the 25 to the 26 as we take a look at our impact players. Brought to you by Chick-fil-A.
For Alabama, Miss.This, senior. Of course, everyone wondering who's going to replace Julio Jones. I don't know that you replace him, but really starting to have a nice year. Eddie Lacy expected back from a turf toe.
He figures to get a bunch of touches here. This is Mays again. And Mays stopped up short of the first down. Take a look at the rest of the impact players.
For Ole Miss, defensively, impact player Mike Mary, one of the top tacklers in the SEC. He's been battling a very painful foot injury. Doesn't practice much during the week, walks around in a boot, but he's really done a nice job with little practice and been kind of a guy that they've needed defensively here for Ole Miss.
3rd and 2. Aaron to pass. Wide open underneath the tight end, Michael Williams, with a lot of open real estate and still on his feet. Finally tripped up at the 37-yard line, 1st and 10. And a nice 3rd down conversion for McCarron. A pickup of 34.
Well, this is a crossing route close to the line of scrimmage. Watch the 2 tight ends release. And the Ole Miss players run into each other. It was good protection for McCarron. Held in there nicely. Williams comes wide open because of that shallow crossing route.
Andrew White split to the bottom of your screen, a talented freshman for Alabama. 1st down and 10. A quick slant complete to Hanks. And Hanks with his 2nd touch of the game. Bring him down at about the 27-yard line, close to the 1st down. We'll take a look at the rest of the Alabama offense. Offense working with a quick tempo right now. A lot of NFL-type talent on that side of the ball as well. 1st down and 10. McCarron going up top. And good coverage, incomplete. Pass intended for Brandon Gibson. As we take a look at the Ole Miss defense. Dorsey, one of the leaders up front out of Baltimore, Maryland. Plays with a real high motor. And Grant getting the start. Guys in the secondary going to be tested early and often here. Richardson with nowhere to go. It's going to be 3rd and about 11 to go for Alabama. Wayne Dorsey leading the charge that time for Ole Miss.
Dorsey, you mentioned he's out of Maryland, went to junior college down here in Mississippi. Was not quite ready for the physical rigors of playing in the SEC last year and dedicated himself in the weight room. The coach has said he's been playing much better and unfortunately had probably his best game against Vanderbilt in a losing effort, so not many people knew about it.
Alabama on the fringes of field goal range. McCarron back to pass. Underneath, complete. And the freshman with a nice catch and a first down conversion, DeAndrew White, who had 2 touchdown catches last week. Eddie picks up 15.
And White, another shallow crossing route called by Jim McElwain. He did it on the last third down. This time uses White, but White, a young man who's been electric last year on scout team through spring. Got a little bit wide-eyed earlier in the year, but last week against Vanderbilt kind of felt like his breaking out party.
8th play of the drive coming up. Richardson into the boundary. His stutter step and puts his hat down and picked up about 4 on the play. It'll be 2nd down and 6. Richardson coming into this game today with 5 consecutive 100-yard-plus rushing games. He had 107 last week in that win against Vanderbilt.
If he gets his 6th today, he will tie Sean Alexander for the most consecutive 100-yard games in school history. And watching this guy on film, he is awfully impressive. He runs with as wide a base when he gets near the line of scrimmage as anyone I've ever seen. Gives him power and good lateral movement.
He gets another touch here, trying to get to the edge, and scores. Bama with an answer. Good blocks up front. And Alabama looking to seize the momentum back. On the 12th rushing touchdown of the season for Trent Richardson, the 26th of his career.
Nice job by Chris Underwood, the tight end, working with Barrett Jones on that side. They sealed the edge. Kind of easy for Richardson when you get those type of blocks.
Richardson averaging over 6 yards per rush this year. The game now knotted at 7 apiece. A lot of offense in the early going. Each team scoring on their opening drive. And Trent Richardson, tell you what, that number 3 train coming down the track right at you. Alabama with a 9-play, 79-yard drive capped by that Trent Richardson touchdown. His 12th of the season, and as we continue Dr. Pepper's road to the championships.
Ho-hum.
Just another long drive. You know, they were down 7-0 at the top of the game here. That was the largest margin that they've trailed by all year. They're down by 7 again earlier against Florida.
And to me, this is why, and we still have a long way to go in this game, this is why Alabama, in my opinion, is the best team in the country. I think offensively, they're much better than even I expected. I think a lot of people expected coming in. We knew Trent Richardson was going to be good. We knew their offensive line was going to be productive. But I think now you're starting to see they maybe have a quarterback in McCarron, and they're starting to develop a bunch of different guys. We're going to see Brad Smelly, the tight end, get involved, I'm sure. But they are awfully balanced offensively, more than anybody expected, I think.
There's Jeff Scott on the kickoff return. Scott finding a little bit of an alley out to the 28-yard line. We check in for the first time today with Wendy back in the studio. What's up, Wendy?
Mark, thank you very much. What's up? It's a Taco Bell studio update. Texas hoping to bounce back after a loss to the Sooners, but this makes it tough. An undefeated Oklahoma State team, Jeremy Smith, 74 yards right on into the end zone, and it's 38-24 Cowboys at the end of the third quarter. Mark?
All right, and here at Vaught Hemingway Stadium, tied at 7. Randall Mackey in at quarterback for Ole Miss. For a 59-yard pass to Brassel to set up the scoring drive earlier. Play fake on 1st and 10, going up top again. A lot of contact and no flag on the play.
Yeah,
Kirkpatrick back defending against Brassel. It almost looked like he had both hands on him when the ball was in the air.
Live, that looked like it was pass interference. Let's take a look. Left arm bar. Yeah, that's pass interference. He leaned into him. He pushed against him. That's got to be a call for Ole Miss. I like the aggressiveness right now of David Lee, the offensive coordinator. He's got a quarterback who throws a nice deep ball, misses a call there, but they shouldn't take that. They shouldn't pull that out of the playbook. It seems to be working.
Hand it off to Jeff Scott, who's going to lose a yard or two. Third down and about 12 coming up as we take a look at the #1 scoring defense in the nation, Alabama. Giving up just 7 points per game. By the way, they are #1 as well in rush defense and #1 in 3 and outs as well.
And this secondary has been the biggest growth from last year's team. They were replacing 3 starters last season. Their communication is so much better through this year.
Pete Edwards telling us during the last break that the offensive line coach warning them that this is where the nuances of that Alabama defense come in. Start giving them different looks. 3rd and 13. Mackey on the move. Finds a man, but it's dropped. Incomplete. That time Brassel couldn't hang on, and he would have had himself a first down.
And Brassel, a young man whose future is likely at cornerback, does not have great hands. He's got good hands, but not great. He had a drop against BYU late in the game that may have won that game, and that time a wonderful job by Mackey buying some time and found Brassel open for the first down, just wasn't able to hang on to a decent throw.
That was Alabama's 42nd 3 and out, which is tops in the nation. Tyler Campbell punting from his own 12-yard line. Looking for a call and a lot more when we come back.
Thing is bright.
ESPN's College Football Primetime is presented by Triple Hops Brewed Miller Lite. Taste greatness. And in part by State Farm. For auto, home, life, and banking. Get to a better state.
At Cunningham, were they rolling out beds there last night? Is that what I just saw? This is the area of town affectionately known as the Grove here in Oxford, Mississippi. And last night at about 9 p.m. they started setting up, pitching their tents and other equipment, getting ready for the tailgating that precedes the actual game here. And it is one of the real hidden gems, folks, of college football. Alabama with the football. A.J. McCarron on the last drive was 4 for 5 passing. First down and 10 from the 33. McCarron going up top, has a man open and knocked away at the last moment. Great recovery speed by Marcus Temple, who batted it away from Kenny Bell.
Bell had a step. The second good coverage play by Temple early in this game. Good aggressive call by Jim McElwain, the offensive coordinator. This ball, I think, just hung up in the air just a touch because Bell had that, and he had a step on the safety as he was going by Damian Jackson, the strong safety. Temple, the corner, comes over right at the last second. Nice play.
Eddie Lacy in the ball game in the backfield beside McCarron. And Lacy, who's returning from a foot injury last week, stopped up. Might have gotten back to the line of scrimmage. Dorsey there to make yet another play. No gain. It'll be 3rd and 10 coming up for the Crimson Tide.
Lacy, a young man who last year, when you think about, he was a 3rd string tailback behind Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson. Went for over 400 yards, but he's got a turf toe injury. If you're a Crimson Tide fan, nice to see him. You want some type of breather for Trent Richardson, and last week Charleston Fowler had to come in, but this is the guy that they want to be their #2 back, clearly.
Empty formation on 3rd and long. McCarron under heat and wisely throws it away. Good pressure up front by the guy that has been ubiquitous tonight all over the field defensively, Wayne Dorsey.
And this is the hardest thing for a tackle to defend, is the quick inside move. The right tackle, DJ Fluker, barely getting a hand on Wayne Dorsey. Oh, what a huge.
Oh, wow.
What a huge penalty against Alabama as far as field position goes. Ole Miss, one of the tops in the country on punt returns. If there was an advantage coming into this game, it was Ole Miss returning punts, and so they get McCarron with intentional grounding, which I think was a good call. He did heave that away to try to avoid the sack, so you basically give the sack yardage. But this is a big penalty as far as field position goes for Ole Miss.
Harvick Neat back to get this punt back at his own 37. Dell with his first punt of the game. been inconsistent so far this year. Gets off a towering spiral back to the 36. So it'll be first down and 10 for Ole Miss. A 44-yard punt, nothing on the return. Part of the culture down here in the South, folks, they get all dressed up. They put on their best to get to the game. We'll be back with more right after this. Not sure that you're going to find more passionate fans anywhere in the country than you will right here in the SEC. You look at those impressive numbers. A lot of people coming out to the games, and you see what I was alluding to earlier. It's a veritable fashion show. I mean, they are cleaner than the Board of Health when they get dressed up to come to these games here in Oxford, Mississippi.
Yeah, I'm a West Coast guy. You go to a USC game, it's flip-flops, T-shirts, not a whole lot of dresses.
First down and 10. Randall Mackey back to pass, overshoots his receiver, is intended for Janez Logan. Let's go back to Wendy in the studio.
Mark, thank you very much. We check now on Ohio State facing number 16 Illinois on the road. Already up 10-0 here. Braxton Mallard to Jake Stoneburner for 17 yards in the touchdown. That's goodbye Miller. 17-7. Ohio State with the lead.
All right, Wendy back here, second down and 10 for Randall Mackey. Draw going nowhere. Enrique Davis stopped up. And that's going to be a loss of a couple on the play. It'll be third down and about 13 to go. Here at Vaught Hemingway Stadium, the 59th edition of Ole Miss in Alabama. And Ole Miss looking to break an 8-game SEC losing streak. They've lost 7 in a row against the Crimson Tide. Up Trent Richardson looking for his 6th consecutive game of going over 100 yards rushing. Keeping his name amongst the top guys in the Heisman race. Mackey underneath. You know what? Alabama has guys that can run too. You saw a display of it right there. Mark Barron, who had some big hits last week against Vandy, makes the stop on Melvin Harris, and it's fourth down. They'll have to punt.
And Barron, a two-time first-team All-SEC guy. We were speaking to him this week, and he said last year when they had some breakdowns in the secondary, a lot of it was just communication. They had 3 new starters. He felt like he had to be kind of telling everyone what to do, and he said now it's more confirmation than alignment changes that I have to be doing. He's been able to focus more on just his job.
Tyler Campbell punting in from his own 16-yard line. Hayes at his own 24. There's that rugby-style rollout kick. Down to the 25, and good coverage on it. Hayes with a nice hand walk. Eluded a couple of attackers and makes it out to the 36-yard line. Well, folks, join host Reese Davis and analyst Kirk Herbstreit and Craig James for BCS Countdown Sunday night as they unveil the first BCS polls and analyze who are the contenders and the pretenders. BCS Countdown presented by Discover on ESPN Sunday 8:15 Eastern, continuing on the U at 9 Eastern. What do you think about the BCS? How does it shake down 1, 2, and 3? How do you see it?
Well, it's Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma at this point, but it'll be, you know, we saw the mock before where Alabama's up there, LSU and Oklahoma. But for me, it's just about getting your vocal cords ready for the argument because there's so much more ball to be played.
Of course, that first Saturday in November is the big game between Alabama and LSU. Alabama not caught looking ahead apparently yet. Richardson staying on his feet, and Ed, there's some of that balance that you talked about. That wide base finally brought down after a gain of about 10. Reminds me a lot of Emmitt Smith in the way Emmitt Smith used to run. I was in the NFL in the early 90s when he was running all over the place, including against the Arizona Cardinals, which was my team. But if you watch his feet when he gets in the middle, you know, a lot of guys, they're slashers where their feet are kind of next to each other looking for speed, but he just has the ability to keep his feet wide. He can cut. He's got great power, and he's really patient, waiting for the people to go by as his offensive line walks. Karen on the quick slant, complete. That's Darius Hanks with another first down, working against Marcus Temple. A 12-yard game between Hanks, Mays, and White. They're going to have to pick up that slack with Julio Jones playing on Sundays now. And now, unfortunately for Ole Miss, you saw Marcus Temple, who's already made a couple of plays, coming off with what looked like a right leg injury. And you can't lose one of these guys.
Mays and also Hank starting to really find some areas that McCarron can find them.
Let's see if they go with the new guy who came in. Pass complete at the 37. A big day in the SEC. Wendy Nix, what's up with LSU Tennessee?
Well, it certainly is, Mark. In fact, a rare SEC matchup. You don't see it all that often. LSU at Tennessee, the #1 team in the land. Here's Jordan Jefferson rushing 3 yards out. Extra point is good, and the Tigers lead Tennessee 31-7.
All right, back here, it's 2nd and 7. Richardson stuffed for a loss of 1.
And there is Mike Mary, the middle linebacker, who one of the top tacklers in the country. And here you go on 3rd. And to me, this is where Darius Hanks, who's playing that slot, comes into play, or potentially DeAndrew White, who's running over to the right here. Maybe you look for a shot on a post. Right here.
Third and 8. Underneath, there's the freshman who slips and falls short of the first down by a couple of yards. He picked up 6 on the play. So it's 4th down, and their place kicker, Jeremy Shelley, is about 80% on the year.
Yeah, this is outside his range, so this is go for it. This is a good call. And I think this is Trent Richardson time. No reason to mess around. You have arguably the best running back in the country. And I think this is a between the tackles run for Alabama. Our power against yours.
Richardson out of the Wildcat formation to take the direct snap. He fakes the handoff on the fly sweep. Broke a tackle for the first down. The indomitable running style of Trent Richardson paying off and moving the pile by about 7 yards. Justin Smith at Cunningham had a shot at him behind the line of scrimmage.
Here's a guy who, out of Pensacola, Florida, in high school, you cannot go up high and tackle this guy. It's got to be down around his waist. But this guy was the strongest player in Florida high school. He won the weightlifting competition and was 4th in the 100 meters. Such an amazing combination of power and speed.
Outside of that, he's not that good an athlete, is he? First down and 10. Richardson cuts it up north-south and runs over a defender. It's down to the 14-yard line. Jackson made the initial hit, and Jackson was the guy, #1 for Ole Miss, that had to play well, that 8th man in the box.
And Chance Warmack, the left guard, this guy can push you around. Great push by him on that play.
Richardson again, they use him like a battering ram close to the 10-yard line. Knight makes the stop, a 4-yard gain.
Well, you go back and watching the Vanderbilt game last week, they spread the ball out. They threw it a little bit in the first half, and at the end of the half, they scored, and then they ran the ball almost the entire second half.
Part of being a great player is doing the arduous, laborious work in the weight room. That is Trent Richardson, the starting tailback for Alabama. And he is a tireless worker. And this is part of the result.
You were talking about Damian Jackson having to come down around the line of scrimmage at strong safety. And a lot of times guys who are that strong, and of course we understand he likes to run folks over. But sometimes those guys are stiff and they can't move as well as Richardson. But he's a outstanding athlete in moving in tight spaces. Rare that you get a straight hit on him, and with his power. We saw that 3rd down, how easily he ran through that high arm tackle.
On first down, McCarron with a quarterback draw. Makes it down to about the 7-yard line. Ralph Williams making the stop on the play. You know, he's singled out, McCarron was, by head coach Nick Saban for his wonderful decision making, and as a result, one of the real early surprises, pleasant surprises for Alabama so far this season. He picked up 4.
And he was in a tight battle with Phillip Sims coming into the season. Sims, a very gifted quarterback with a good arm, but a lot of it had to do, McCarron had one more year in the system, and just the comfort of someone who was not going to make mistakes and make good decisions was why McCarron got the start.
10th play of the Alabama drive. Richardson between the tackles and waltzes into the end zone untouched. Touchdown, Alabama. His second touchdown of the day. And he pushes that total up to 53 for the afternoon.
That was blocked so well. Chance Warmack, the left guard who pulled, was stopped and almost looking for who should I block, and then he just decided to go up to the safety.
Very impressive, methodical scoring drive by Alabama. Leads by 7. And you love that line up front, huh?
The line up front is played very well, but watch how balanced Richardson is as he goes through the line of scrimmage. That wide base, at any moment he can make that cut off the block into the end zone too easy.
Well, earlier on that last drive, bad news for Mississippi. Marcus Temple trying to make a tackle on an earlier play against Darius Hanks. You watch his right leg get underneath him, and he limped off the field in pain. Janine Edwards downstairs with more.
Yeah, guys, they had taken Marcus Temple into the locker room a few minutes ago for x-rays, and just a moment ago I was with trainer Tim Mullins as he was on the phone, and he then signaled for Marcus Temple's dad to come down out of the stands. He took his dad back into the locker room, and then Mullins told me that Temple has a fractured ankle, so not good for the Rebels in the secondary, guys.
Temple, a real leader in the secondary, their most consistent player back there all season long. Singleton on the kickoff return. Tobias Singleton looking to break one, still on his feet, and pushed out of bounds at midfield by Dean Milner. Milner with a touchdown saving tackle, but a 47-yard kickoff return.
And this is, if you're going to get a huge upset against the #2 team in the country, you're going to need some things to happen in the kicking game. You're going to need to force some turnovers. And Milner, if he doesn't make that tackle, I think that Singleton gets that edge and takes it to the house.
Mississippi starting off on Alabama's side of midfield. Handoff to Enrique Davis as we go back to Wendy Nix in the studio.
Mark, thank you very much. Boise State on the road at Colorado State, and what a first quarter for Doug Martin. 65 yards here, but Martin has 135 yards rushing, and that's in the first quarter. That made it 14-0. It's now 21-0 Boise State with the lead, and Virginia Tech completes the upset, beating number 12 Georgia Tech 24-21.
All right, Wendy, and Jeff Scott in the backfield now for Ole Miss. Little screen pass well set up. But Alabama running so well to the ball, making the stop. Nico Johnson. Ed, tell me what's going on inside the minds of those Rebel players right now. Still in the game, just down 7. People may have expected worse.
And they're getting some momentum at the kicking game with the return. And I like the call there by David Lee. They talked about getting Scott, Brassel, and then Dante Moncrief, another freshman, the ball in different ways. I like that call. Nico Johnson just barely gets over there to make the tackle.
On 3rd and 6. Mackey under a little bit of heat. Uses his feet wisely, sliding head first, and picks up the first down at Alabama's 35-yard line, a 10-yard gain. Let's go downstairs to Janine.
And Mark, you and Ed hit the nail on the head with the Rebels. I've been spending a lot of time behind their bench. I see a lot of smiling faces. Guys are lighthearted. The coaches are joking with them. They are very upbeat right now. I think after a turbulent week, scoring on that opening series really was a shot in the arm for this team.
They've been preaching about 2008 when they went down to the swamp at Gainesville and upset Florida. First down and 10. Mackey off the play fake. Incomplete at the 2-yard line. You know, Ed, the one thing that you can say about Ole Miss offensively is that they haven't been afraid or tentative about taking shots.
No, and that goes again to what David Lee, offense coordinator, quarterback coach, talked about with Randall Mackey, is he throws a really good long ball. The other thing that's been impressive with Mackey is he gets the ball out quickly. The one thing Lee worked with on him all during the bye and into this week was the clock in your head has just got to go off. This defense is going to get to you. And that time, even though he just kind of threw it downfield hoping for something, at least he didn't take a sack.
Jeff Scott with nowhere to go. He's going to lose a couple of yards. Square makes the stop on the play. You know, Mackey redshirted last season after being named a junior college All-American at East Mississippi Community College in 2009. To put this into context for you, Mackey was rated ahead of none other than Cam Newton. Tells you about what kind of talent he has. And he's a young man that's overcome a lot. Had some communication issues with his speech and has worked diligently and tirelessly to overcome it. 3rd and 12. Given time. Contact downfield, no flag, incomplete. It'll be 4th down coming up.
And you could see the frustration on Mackey's face. You were talking about the communication issues. He suffers from a speech impediment. They worked very hard. He was having a hard time calling plays in the huddle. The adrenaline made the impediment worse. So, of course, you get into a game, but they worked extremely hard with him, and he's come around. They said it's not a problem anymore. He's able to make changes. As a matter of fact, 3 plays ago, Alabama was showing a blitz, and you saw him change the protection when he ran for the 1st down. That was a good audible by the quarterback on that one.
4th down and 12. There's that rugby-style punt by Rhodes. Unfortunately, goes into the end zone. It'll come back out to the 20-yard line. 37-yard punt, but a net of just 17. 1st and 10, Alabama when we come back.
ESPN's College Football Primetime. Brought to you by the award-winning 2012 Fiat 500. Learn more at fiatusa.com. And Courtyard, it's a new stay.
Look at the sign, the speed limit. Thinking maybe it's a little bit odd. Well, here in Oxford, the Mannings are so beloved that Archie Manning's number 18 is the official, that's right, the official speed limit on the university campus.
Well, they were going to change it to Eli's number, but that was 10 miles an hour and everybody was late to class.
Strictly enforced, I might add. 1st down and 10. That's Mays picking up about 7. And someone who's always in the fast lane, Wendy Nix, back in the studio.
Mark, I'm afraid that's all too true. Reminder of game going on over on ESPN or ABC, depending on where you are. Oklahoma State and Texas. The Longhorns were threatening but fumbled the ball and now have under 2 minutes to play. They trail Oklahoma State. The score in this game, 38-26.
So Longhorns looking at taking one on the chin in consecutive weeks. It's the 2 Oklahoma schools. 2nd down and 3 coming up for Alabama. Handoff to Eddie Lacy, and Lacy powering forward picks up 4 for the 1st down. Well, a great day of college football on ESPN concludes with a key matchup in the Pac-12. Brock Osweiler leads number 18 Arizona State against Aaron Thomas, number 9 Oregon. College football primetime presented by Hampton Hotels on ESPN and ESPN3 tonight at 10:15 Eastern Time. Also streaming live on WatchESPN.com and the Watch ESPN app, which I have on my iPad. Ed.
And Michael James, questionable with that elbow injury. I'm not sure it's going to matter. Arizona State, good defensively, a lot of turnovers, but remember all the guys they've had hurt. Starting linebacker, all Pac-10 cornerback out. Not sure they're going to be able to slow him down too much.
Can't slow down Eddie Lacy. That nice spin move, well executed, makes it out to the 46-yard line. And Alabama really starting to roll. You know, we were talking about A.J. McCarron and, you know, something about an indelible moment early in his football career at Alabama. I think back to Nick Saban planting that right hand on his backside after he made a bad decision last year. Got a lot of attention. A 15-yard gain. First-year starter, learned under Greg McElroy. Now playing on Sundays. Pass complete into Mississippi territory at the 49. That's Michael Williams with his second catch of the game.
And you can just see McCarron getting more and more and more comfortable. Of course, Jim McElwain, the offensive coordinator, is also the quarterback's coach. Hired back in 2008. And if you look at this offense, every single year under Jim McElwain, who doesn't get the credit he probably deserves because they do play conservative here at Alabama, but offensively, statistically, every year he's been here, they've gotten better and better. And you see their quarterbacks just start to have a mastery of what they want. That ball got out in a hurry. Good read, good throw.
2nd and 5. Lacey trying to hit the corner. Back inside with nowhere to go. Stopped up right around the line of scrimmage by Mike Mary, one of our impact players. Playing hurt. Hadn't practiced much this week. How much does that, Ed, affect a player when you don't get your reps and you just step in and play?
Huge for a guy who plays that middle linebacker because he's the guy who sets the defense. So it's not only a matter of getting the reps to see the other team's offense and what they do and their tendencies, but it's also just the communication of what are we doing this week. That's excellent middle linebacker play right there, though. But I'm surprised how well this young man's played without that practice.
3rd and 4. Karen gets rid of it quickly. Enough for the first down to Smelly at the 43-yard line. A 6-yard gain on the play.
And Smelly, a guy who was a quarterback in high school, made the transition to tight end, had his first touchdown of his career last week against Vanderbilt. But watching him on film, he's the type of guy you can move around. He's very fast. He runs very good routes, good cuts, has good hands. They are starting to use him in different ways. Again, this offense, why I think Alabama is the best team. They're becoming an offense that's very tough to defend. They do so many different things well.
Running the ball, one of them. Lacey, part of their depth, but there's a flag down on the interior line. Back at the 41-yard line in the area of holding, an 11-yard gain if it stands.
I think they're going to get William Vlahos, the center. Looked like he had a shirt tail.
Holding, number 73, offense. 10-yard penalty from the spot of foul. Replay first down.
Watch right there. Vlahos will not. Well, he's over here, but he had a hold of that shirt tail.
Move the ball back at the 49-yard line of Alabama.
Got to let go of that shirt, William. When you pull the shirt tail.
You didn't read the Ed Cunningham manual. That's the problem.
You see when a shirt comes out, you got to let go.
1st and 19 as a result. Karen taking a shot from Mays and incomplete. Good coverage downfield by Wesley Pendleton. Remember that secondary missing their leader right now, Marcus Temple. Janine Edward telling us a few moments ago that he has a fractured ankle.
One of the guys that they're going to have to get in there in that secondary is number 2, Nicholas Brassel. He's a freshman. Wouldn't be surprised if they try to get some of these younger corners not out there right now, just trying to get his guys pumped up.
2nd and 19. Little receiver screen to Hanks. Upended at the 47-yard line. Good coverage and complete tackling by Sindarius Bryant. One of the smallest players on the field. A great story, too.
Yeah, true freshman. They call him Bird because he flies around everywhere. And we were talking to Tyrone Nix, the defensive coordinator. He said, I've got to keep this young man on the field as much as I can. He's just a baller.
True freshman out of Orlando, Florida. Nix telling us they have to create takeaways. Try and slow down that running game. 3rd and 14. Karen underneath. Complete. And short of the first down is Kenny Bell.
But I think you're in 4-down territory again. A good job by McCarron finding something. Good protection by this offensive line. And now, again, you're not quite in Jeremy Shelley range. But you could see Nick Saban thinking, I'm not going to push this one. I'm going to punt it away. You can't blame the guy. He's got the #1 defense in the country. I think if you picked up 2 more yards, he goes for it. Don't blame him for punting it here.
It'd be about a 53-yard field goal. What kind of impact does this have down the road on your place kicker when you don't have enough confidence or faith in him to make something a little over 50 yards?
But he knows what his range is. And you talk to kickers about, hey, you don't quite have that range. So not a bad deal for those guys.
Time out on the field. We'll be back with more from Vaught Hemingway Stadium right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Oxford, Mississippi on a beautiful, luminous, irradiant, bright day. A look at the part of town they call the Square. 4th down coming up for Alabama. And they brought in Cade Foster. He's the place kicker that kicks the extra long field goal attempts. This one would come from 53 yards out. And this is a good part of the field to actually gamble a little bit if they want, right?
Yeah, this could be a fake, but this is a guy that they trust with the longer field goal. So instead of a punt, going for a guy whose range right around the 38-yard line, the line of scrimmage. So they're inside what they feel comfortable with.
Cade Foster from 53. And far short, and it's going to come out of the end zone. A nice return out to the 33.
And unfortunately for Cade Foster, as he went down to cover, he knew it was short, and he got blown up on a clean block by Ole Miss. But fortunately, he knew he had kicked it short, and watch this hit right there. Big block by number 98, Uriah Grant.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, that's what everybody's playing for, the Coach's Trophy, presented by Dr. Pepper. Of course, Alabama taking on Mississippi here. Alabama figuring prominently right now in amongst the top teams in the country. A chance to take that worthy piece of crystal home.
That crystal's been hanging around this part of the country for a long time.
They shined it up for today. Maybe I should say dusted it. 1st down and 10, Ole Miss from the 34. Mackey incomplete, intended for Jeff Scott, who picked it up, and they're going to say it's an incomplete pass. Well, we talked about the quarterbacking situation. Mackey is the 3rd starting quarterback. His backup, should the case call for it today, is Zach Stout, the West Virginia transfer. He played in just 2 games with the Mountaineers, and NCAA ruling him eligible immediately because of a family hardship. There he is right there on the sidelines. Mackey hands it off to Scott with nowhere to go up to the 33. Sunday NFL Countdown, folks, returning this season with a new start time, 3 hours of the best in the business. Berman, Jackson, Johnson, Ditka, Carter, and insiders Mortensen and Schefter, providing with all the things you need to know coming right up to kickoff. Sunday NFL Countdown presented by IBM on ESPN Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. 3rd and long. Situation that kind of calls for Brassel. Here's split to the bottom of your screen. Actually, he's the slot guy.
And Ole Miss calls a timeout. There was confusion with all the movement up front for Alabama, and Houston Nutt deciding to bring it to the sideline.
Rebels hanging in, though, with 4:55 to go in the first half.
Now, part of the confusion was Ole Miss starts in an I formation. They look over, and they're going to get a call from the sideline. Now, watch the defensive line as they go to split backs and a shotgun formation. Now, Alabama looks over to the sideline to get a change of their defense because of the change of formation. And I think Ole Miss maybe outsmarted themselves a little bit. And they were not ready to. And now they come out in the same formation that they had switched to. Probably the same call.
3rd and 11. Pressure off the corner, backside pressure, and it's picked off at the 39-yard line. Lester still on his feet and picking up a couple of blockers too. Still on his feet, but there's a flag down. Lester all the way down to the 4-yard line for Alabama. There's a flag thrown all the way back at the 32 on the game's first turnover. And Alabama's 8th interception of the season.
Well, one of the things in talking to David Lee, the offensive coordinator.
After the interception, illegal block in the back, number 92, defense. 10-yard penalty from the spot of the foul, first down.
But the one thing that David Lee was saying that they've worked on with Mackey, he throws a very accurate deep ball, but it's those intermediate throws that get away from him. And this ball floats on him as he's looking downfield. For number 85, Jamez Logan. And that's kind of a look. Don't take it away. You say it's easy or whatever, but that's playing the coverage. It's called. Lester was a safety behind the ball, and that's what they're there for. They're there to be the stopgap, but also if the ball's overthrown, to make the play. Good job of keeping his balance as well during that return.
Unfortunately, they bring it back to the 41-yard line. Alabama defense leading the nation in scoring defense and rush defense and 3 and outs. Richardson in the backfield on 1st and 10. 4.5 minutes to go in the first half. A game that is a lot closer than most thought it would be, even at this point. Richardson turns it north-south. And a first down inside the 25-yard line.
And there's a little bit of that patience that they talk about. Just he's never in a rush. He's fast. There he bounces it to the outside. Just always looking, cutting, running with power. Good acceleration when he sees it, and occasionally able to just walk into the end zone untouched. But special player for the Crimson Tide.
Not to mention one of the better receivers on the team. Gets the carry here, leaps over a tackler, and a nice straight arm all the way down to the 16-yard line. Frank Crawford got a whole bunch of hand to the face.
You can't look at it enough, but watch as he gets up near the line of scrimmage, how wide those feet stay. Look at that. Just such great balance and power. It's rare. You do not see a lot of guys who can run. He's got kind of bow legs, which help him get those legs out a little wider and help him cut.
Continue to milk him.
Yeah. And, you know, yesterday when I went in and watched coaches' film, which is they show all 22 players from up on the sideline, and then they show very tight on the line. I was going back and forth, and I remember when we used to sit and watch Emmitt Smith when I was with the Cardinals, looking at him from behind. Same body type, same running style. Not huge top-end speed, but just the ability in space to be powerful and move that kind of jump cut. Awfully special guy.
Give it to him again. Flag down. Richardson gets it into the end zone. But hold on, there's a flag thrown back at the 13. If it stands, it'll be his 3rd touchdown of the day.
Holding, number 73, offense. 10-yard penalty.
Against Vlahos.
Well, he gets the sumo slam.
And that would be what exactly, partner?
Well, watch when he engages with the defensive lineman and turns and slams him to the ground, Carlton Martin. And they'll call that every time. Yeah. It's when you get the hands around and the guy starts to spin. It's like you've got him in a sumo ring and you flip him over, and they're going to call that just about every time, especially when the ball's run inside and the umpire's looking right at it. 2 holding calls on Vlahos so far tonight.
1st and 20. Richardson brought down from behind at the 21-yard line. Good tackle by Wayne Dorsey, who's been real busy. But Richardson coming into this game with 5 consecutive 100-yard rushing contests, comparing very favorably to Mark Ingram, now with the New Orleans Saints, and Heisman Trophy winner as well.
And 2 guys who keep in touch all the time. And Richardson, actually, we found out earlier, a few days older than Mark Ingram, but everyone on the program saying that Ingram was always playing the big brother to the older Richardson.
2nd and 18. Karen with tons of time. Richardson showing you his receiving skills and running skills, bowling his way inside the 10 to the 6, short of the first down. And Janine had a conversation with Ingram a little bit earlier. All the way down to the 6. Tell you about that in just a moment. A 15-yard gain. 3rd and 3.
To me, this is still Richardson time. Wouldn't be surprised with him split off to the quarterback's right with a delayed draw potentially here.
Hayes in motion to the top of your screen. McCarron throws it out of bounds through the back of the end zone, and a little bit of a win then for Mississippi, right?
Yes, to get a field goal out of that drive is huge for Mississippi.
The holding call against Vlahos somewhat costly as well.
And the last drive, there was the holding call that hurt them as well against Vlahos that stopped that drive. So 2 drives in a row from a team that isn't very penalized. Not surprising that Nick Saban has a team that doesn't have many penalties, but 2 drives in a row harmed by that.
This is Jeremy Shelley from about 24 yards out. And Shelley knocks it through. A big part of that scoring drive set up by Trent Richardson, who spoke with Mark Ingram, and Janine is going to tell us about that. What kind of relationship is that?
You know what, guys? It's super close. I mean, they speak all the time, and Ingram told me yesterday he has really enjoyed watching Richardson's development this season. He said just every little thing. His blitz protection is better. He's pressing the holes. He's making the correct reads. He said he'll make you miss or run right through you, which is what we're seeing tonight. And he said he's just simply a game changer from anywhere on the field. And he said he's really become a student of the game. And because Ingram and Richardson speak on the phone every week, I'd like to think that Ingram probably has a little bit of a role in that.
Great stuff, Janine. There's a lot of closeness and bonding, and this is a real galvanized team. You know, you can think back to the NFL draft recently when Julio Jones, a star wide receiver, All-American for Alabama, was part of the NFL draft, drafted number 6 overall. Mark Ingram, who we were just talking about, was picked number 28 in that same draft. Now, think about this. Julio Jones waited 22 spots in the green room for his buddy to walk out with him. That means a lot. And your big moment.
Yeah, and most guys who get drafted in the top 10, as soon as that's over, they're out on the town in Manhattan celebrating with family and friends. But an awfully classy move by Jones.
Mississippi with a singular goal of hanging around until the 4th quarter. They want this to slip away too much. With 1:14 to go in the first half. Herman finding a little bit of open room here. Reversing field, and a great return all the way down to the 38 of Alabama. Let's go back to Wendy in the studio.
Mark, thank you. Coming up on the Outback Steakhouse halftime report, the #1 team in the country rolls past Tennessee. Texas tries to bounce back against Oklahoma State, and Michigan suffers its first loss of the season. I'm joined, as always, by Robert Smith and Todd McShay coming up at the half.
All right, Wendy. Busy day in the SEC, of course, and a nice return, a big win. 44-yard kickoff return. Straight ahead, this is Enrique Davis, brought down by Hightower.
Not sure you want to be running the ball here if you're Ole Miss. You've got 1 timeout. You're not quite in field goal range. You want to be inside the 35-yard line for Bryson Rose, but look at this clock start to melt away. I think you got to throw it or get it past the first down marker out of bounds.
Mackey sacked back to the 41. You don't want to take a sack either. 1 timeout remaining. Gentry there to make the stop.
And you can now You ran the ball on that, or excuse me, yes, you ran the ball on that first down, and now you had to burn a timeout, which could have been very helpful.
How important is the score to Mississippi right here if you're trying to keep this game close and get into the fourth quarter, as Houston Nutt has indicated, and giving yourself a chance here with, you know, just that much time remaining, 31 seconds to go now.
It's huge, and that's why I think running the ball on first down and then getting a negative yardage play and having to use the timeout, you were already really close to field goal range. And I know you want to think touchdown, but here you are, 27-point underdog, driving. You get a good kickoff return, and frankly, I thought it was a bad call on first down that now has you in a position where you need to pick up 8 or 9 yards just to get yourself back into field goal position against the best defense in the country.
Bryson Rose's longest field goal this year is just 29 yards out. 3rd and 13. Got to get to the 28 for a first down. Mackey dumps it off, incomplete underneath, and that'll pretty much crush any hopes of putting some points on the board before the end of the first half.
4th and 13 for Ole Miss.
And they have sent out Bryson Rose, the kicker. His career long is 41 yards.
Wow.
Ooh, this is a dangerous call. This feels to me like it could get blocked by Alabama and returned, although Alabama's going to play it safe smartly. Just don't think you're going to get points out of it this way. And I like this timeout by Nick Saban.
What's he thinking?
He's thinking, I want to get a rush on this kick. First of all, you want to talk to everybody about what their responsibilities are in case it's a fake. This is great game management by Nick Saban and his staff. And he's talking to Dante Hightower, one of his leaders on defense. Let's make sure we have them covered. But I think also, I'd be surprised if they come out and play it safe. I think they're going to try to get a rush against a guy whose career long is 41. They tend to drive the ball when it's longer, even though he's kicked 13 consecutive. And I think Nick Saban is making sure that everybody's covered who needs to be covered. But I just don't think Mississippi would try a fake here. This is going to be a kick. And now they're switching and putting out their punt team. This is the right decision. The timeout by Alabama, I think, actually helped Ole Miss make the better decision here.
Tyler Campbell, the punter, coming in. Averaging almost 47 yards per punt, and here's that rugby-style rollout. They'll aim for the coffin corner, and this is going to be a nice punt. Be down at around the 5 or inside.
And Mark, put a little asterisk next to that drive there, because I think you asked the pertinent question, how big a score would be. But they had the negative yardage play on second down and an incomplete pass on third. Really close to field goal range, 4, 5, 6 yards. And I think Bryson Rose runs out, who's been very consistent kicking field goals over the last 7 or 8 ball games. And instead of being down 17-10, now down 17-7.
Well, Ole Miss hasn't had a single yard of offense since the opening drive of the ball game. Rebels has gone south a little bit here in the second quarter.
You know what that tells me?
What's that?
Alabama's pretty good on that.
They're not bad. Number 1 in the nation in scoring defense and rushing defense and 3 and outs. First down and 10, and Karen keeps it himself. And SEC football, you see what it's all about right there on the field. The trenches, the combat, the warfare that goes on the respective lines of scrimmage as we go downstairs to Gene Edwards with Houston Nutt.
Yeah, Coach, real quick, I mean, what changed your mind there on deciding to go ahead and punt the ball after Alabama called timeout?
A little long. If you miss that, they got a chance to put the ball in the end zone one more time. Which 17-7 is a good game right now. We're right here in it with a chance to win it.
A volatile couple of days for you having to suspend those 4 players. Other than the points on the scoreboard, what's telling the story of this first half for you guys?
Well, I think our guys are fighting awfully hard. Hurt us really bad when Marcus Temple went down with a broken ankle. That hurt us. But Brazel's having to go both ways. We put some points. That first touchdown helped us, but, well, we had our chances right here. I wish we could have got some points out of this last drive.
All right, Coach, we'll see you second half.
One thing's for certain, Houston Nutt will be in that locker room in a few moments with an impassioned speech. getting his players, imploring them to get it done in the second half. The Outback Steakhouse Studio Halftime Report with Wendy and the crew coming up next.
Mark, thank you very much. We begin with the #1 team in the country, LSU, on the road at Tennessee, a rare SEC matchup. They've only met 5 times since 1994. Here we go. Final minute of the first quarter, still scoreless. Matt Sims heaves it, and it's picked off by Morris Claiborne.
Morris Claiborne, everyone talks about Tyrann Mathieu, and rightfully so because of all the big plays he's had this year. Claiborne could be a top 10 NFL draft pick next April. He has those kind of cover skills you see there, going up and making the big play.
Making a great catch, almost identical to the one that he made against Mississippi State earlier in the season. Great athleticism. Nice job covering up the ball there, not turning it back over to Tennessee.
LSU would score there. Then Lee hits Spencer Ware on the screen pass, and now it's 14-0 Tigers. It's 24-7 here in the fourth quarter, 2nd and goal. Jordan Jefferson on the option, and in the end zone he goes.
I'm not a huge proponent of the 2-quarterback system. So far it's working, though. 10 of 14 passing with Jarrett Lee, and Jefferson 14 carries for 73 yards rushing.
Worked with Chris Leak and Tim Tebow.
It did.
It did, to the tune of a national championship. Auburn and Florida, this game underway over on ESPN. Just about 6.5 minutes to play in the first quarter, and it remains scoreless. South Carolina and Mississippi State. Steve Spurrier, 1 and 2 all-time in Starkville, and it appeared troubles would continue, at least early on. Gamecocks trailing, but then Marcus Lattimore carries it in to tie it at 7.
Boy, such a great runner, very instinctive runner, and as you can see on this play, a direct snap in the Wildcat. He's out there blocking, gets rolled up. Nothing you can do about it, but just a terrible-looking injury. And hopefully for South Carolina, he's back this year. It does not look good the way he laid on the ground on the stretcher, family out.
They're calling it a left knee sprain until they get more results, but that doesn't look like a sprain, unfortunately.
Tumultuous week for the Gamecocks. Their first game since dismissing Stephen Garcia. Connor Shaw heaves it up, and Alshon Jeffries, a big fella, he hauls it in.
I don't know, there's a better receiver in the country when the ball's in the air attacking. You talk about coming up big when they needed it.
Tyler Russell, the opposite. Wow, picked off here.
Looks like Melvin Ingram applying the pressure there. We've seen him score a few touchdowns this year. Gets a lot of pressure on Russell. Forces a short throw, and a great athletic play by the safety.
Robert Smith, Todd McShay, Wendy Nix here with you at the half. Let's start with the SEC East because Georgia and South Carolina, despite the Bulldogs' 0-2 start, tied at the top of the SEC East. Now, I know South Carolina owns the tiebreaker, but losing Marcus Lattimore could change this entirely.
Well, and it's not just losing Lattimore. Certainly that's going to change the dynamic for them offensively. But I think when you look at their schedule, they have 3 SEC games left. Now, both of them, both Georgia and South Carolina, have to play Florida. But South Carolina also has to play Arkansas, a powerhouse out of the West. That could be the game changer right there. But certainly this South Carolina offense is going to look a lot different without Mr. Lattimore back there.
How about in the West? We're all looking forward to that November 5th date. You've got LSU going to Alabama. And between now and then, obviously Alabama trying to close this one out against Ole Miss. But then you've got Auburn playing LSU next week. You've got Tennessee against Alabama. And the beauty is, the following week, the 29th of October, they both have byes. So an extra week to get healthy, an extra week to game plan and prepare. Les Miles the Hat versus Nick Saban, the great defensive coach and overall game planner. This has a chance to be one of the special games in college football in the last few years during the regular season.
It really does, and it almost sets up like a de facto national semifinal.
Well, someone said to me yesterday, it's week 7, or as we like to call it, 3 weeks until LSU Alabama. So let the hype begin. Texas took a tumble against Oklahoma last week. They hoped to bounce back against Oklahoma State, but it would be a difficult run. We'll check it out after this.
This halftime report is presented by Outback Steakhouse. It's always fresh in the Outback.
An ode to why Saturdays are sacred. Watching the Tide continue to roll, while at times the Rebels simply yell. The aromatic smell of everything that sizzles, and the savory taste of delectable morsels. Style, sights, and sounds interwove. And yes, mingling and a walk in the grove. Friend or foe, the reality of what's ahead. Yet hope still fuels the passion. Only time will tell next. Under the lights, welcome back everyone to Oxford, Mississippi. You're watching ESPN College Football Primetime presented by Miller Lite. It's the SEC on ESPN. Alabama leading by 10 at the break. Mark Jones along with Ed Cunningham, Janine Edwards down on the sidelines joining us shortly. Ed, a lot of people think maybe this would have been a blowout at this point of the game. Your thoughts?
For Ole Miss, so close in that last kickoff return. You could tell when Coach Nutt was talking to Janine, very upset they didn't get points. But I think you've got to come out and think, we're in this game. And they've talked all week about getting to the fourth quarter, and let's see what happens. So just can't let the floodgates open now.
They keep harkening back to 2008 when they upset Florida in the swamp. Let's take a look at our breakdown brought to you by Farmers Insurance. You break your back doing that kind of weightlifting.
Well, I think one of the strongest guys pound for pound in college football. As he gets through the hole, you can see him spread his feet out. And then when you really zoom down and look at his balance and strength, it is so rare to see a guy who has that wide of a base as he's running through a hole, constantly shifting back and forth. It allows him to do quick jump cuts, but more importantly, it allows him to use his incredible strength, over 600 pounds. And we were talking to some of the guys before the game from Alabama. These results, which are max, meaning one repetition max, they say these aren't the most he can do. They actually will not allow him to go any higher because they're afraid he'll be injured. So who knows how high the numbers those could be.
Alabama's going to get the ball to start the third quarter. Marquise Mays on the kickoff return, still on his feet. Through a maze of players up to the 27-yard line, and Janine Edwards had a chance to speak with Nick Saban at the half. What do you say, Janine?
That's right, Mark, and I can tell you that he wants to see a little more fire from his players. He said, yeah, we're doing a good job moving the ball. We're moving the ball pretty well, but we're not finishing drives. None of this settling for three, guys. Defensively, he said, we cannot give up another big play. Case closed. And most importantly in the second half, he says we need to keep Randall Mackey in the pocket. He's starting to scramble on us.
It's interesting, Ed, at the beginning of the third quarter of that game against Vanderbilt last week, they came out and really made a statement, didn't they?
Yeah, it was number three, number three, number three. And then they brought in Jalston Fowler, who was subbing for the injured Eddie Lacy. I would think it's going to be 3-3-3, 42, 3-3-3 this whole drive.
First down and 10. Karen throws it away. Tried to set up the screen for Richardson. Nothing doing as we take a look at the first half numbers. Just the one turnover in the ball game.
And for Ole Miss, just 72 yards of total offense. Most of that coming on that first drive. And Trent Richardson, who they were trying to set up a screen for there, 98 yards of total offense. So he outgained the Ole Miss offense in the first half.
Richardson looking for his sixth consecutive 100-yard rushing game. Karen completes it. On the edge, that's number 7, Kenny Bell. He's going to get a few. Picks up about 3 on the play. It'll be third down and 7 to go.
And Ole Miss now getting it to third and long. That's always the goal. They switch out, bring in their pass rushers. But if I were Ole Miss, I would be very interested in number 17. Brad Smelly. He's a guy that they can sneak out of that backfield. Remember those crossing routes that Alabama ran earlier in the ball game.
And Ole Miss burns one of its timeouts here earlier in the third quarter. Well, folks, this week on ESPN's Monday Night Football, AFC East rivals battle in MetLife Stadium as the Dolphins look to rebound from a rough start against Mark Sanchez and the Jets. Dolphins-Jets, ESPN's Monday Night Football. Also available live on Watch ESPN. Coverage begins 7 Eastern with Monday Night Countdown, served by Applebee's. From Sun Life Stadium in Miami Gardens.
It's kind of late.
I'm sorry, that's in New York, that game. Yeah.
Kind of late for that youngster, yeah. Looks like he's nodding off, maybe.
Third and 6. McCarron under some heat, and he converts it. Mays slips and falls, but he got a nice spot. He got out over the 38 and picks up the first down with a 10-yard gain.
Excellent job by McCarron as the pocket collapsed. He stepped up into the pocket and then actually jumped because there was so many bodies in front of him. And Mays is becoming a guy who, boy, he's really helping this offense blossom into a tough offense to defend. That another shallow crossing route hit by McCarron with good protection.
Little play fake now. Here's Richardson. Nice cutback and brought down from behind at the 44-yard line, but another first down on a 15-yard gain. And there you see why Richardson is the second leading receiver on this team.
I am so impressed in watching A.J. McCarron on film last week against Vanderbilt and now here tonight. You know, he got the job ostensibly because he could manage the game better, but he is starting to feel it. We talked to Nick Saban. He said he's a guy who won everything he did in high school: basketball, baseball, football. You get that feeling. He just gets into the game, starts seeing everything, the game slows down. I'm really impressed with this sophomore quarterback.
Over the middle, wide open at the 25-yard line, Hanks. And Hanks still on the move, with intentions taking him all the way down to the 7-yard line. First and goal for Alabama.
And this was just a blown coverage by Ole Miss. Nothing too fancy. Hanks just runs in the slot, completely uncovered. Once again, good protection by the offensive line. Ball thrown just a touch behind, but you'll take that. Good read.
36-yard gain.
A little shocked how much they're throwing it here, coming out here in this second half.
Richardson, the lone back. Richardson on the run, breaks a tackle, and another touchdown for Trent Richardson. His third one of the game. This looks eerily familiar to their opening drive of the third quarter last week in that game against Vandy. They came out and made a big statement. A career-high third touchdown of the game for Richardson. And Alabama with a 24-7 lead.
Nice block by the right guard. Anthony Steen drives his man right out of the picture, and an excellent cutback and finish by Richardson.
Tell you what, Ed Cunningham, I'm going to run to the local store and get the Trent Richardson workout DVD and try and look like this guy when I grow up. An amazing physical specimen and a great work ethic, too.
And, you know, a lot of times guys who are that strong, and to put into context that 600-pound squat, that would be good for an NFL defensive lineman or offensive lineman. But a lot of times, we used to have a term when I was playing called a weight room warrior, a guy who in the weight room was killer, and then he went out on the field and was stiff as a board and couldn't move, couldn't make people miss. This guy's that rare combination of fluid and strength.
What about the 450-pound bench press? How impressive is that by running back?
Again, that's right up there with NFL offensive and defensive linemen.
Don't ask me what I think. On the kickoff return. Out to the 42. It's Tobias Singleton. And let's go downstairs to Janine for this report on Ole Miss.
Hey, Mark, if there's one guy out here tonight that's really earning his keep, it's Nick Brassel for Ole Miss. Don't forget, he's playing both sides of the ball, offense and defense. And at halftime in the locker room, they had to give him IV fluids, and they held him out of that first defensive series so that he could rest up a bit. But he will be taking the field for offense this time around.
Oh, with 12:23 to go in the third quarter, it's about time that this offense get with the program. They have not produced much since the opening drive of the game, which resulted in a touchdown. On the fly sweep, here he is, Brassel. Got those fluids in him. And our FaceTime profile this week brought to you by Edward Jones. It's Nicholas Brassel. Talked about his versatility offensively and defensively. Ed, ultimately, where do you think he ends up playing? Where's he best used, do you think, on this team?
Well, they need him offensively because of the speed, but ultimately I think he's going to be a cornerback. And talking to the coaches, and David Lee, the offensive coordinator, said, unfortunately, he's got next-level skills at cornerback. Not that he can't be a good receiver. We saw he struggles catching the ball cleanly. But eventually, he's going to be an upper-level cornerback in this league.
And 2nd and 8. Mackey takes off, and a nice run. Ends up about 2 yards short of the first down. Picked up 6 or 7 on the play. It'll be 3rd and about 2 to go.
And that is something that's going to drive Nick Saban crazy. He told Janine Edwards coming into half, we need to stay in our lanes, something they normally do very well, but that time as they rushed up the field, Mackey pulls it down and goes. You almost feel like you could tell that you don't want to tell your defensive line, hey, stop rushing, but right now it feels like the only thing that's working offensively is calling a drop back pass, guys getting out of their lanes, and Mackey taking off.
3rd and 2. Little pressure coming. Mackey steps up, uses his legs, and gets the first down. Remember that he was higher rated than Cam Newton back in junior college at East Mississippi Community College. And showing you his running skills there. Mackey had something to say about this Alabama game coming up. He said, you know, they've got some, well, I'm not going to call them weaknesses, he said, but, you know, they ain't Superman. Anybody can be beat. So far, his team down 17. 1st and 10. So Scott. And Scott chopped down behind the line of scrimmage at the 44 by Robert Lester.
And Scott, a 5'7", 175-pound sophomore, of course. Brandon Bolden, another running back, was suspended for the game, a captain of the team who'd been hurt in that first ball game against BYU. So Scott came in, and it was the success of Dexter McCluster, the 5'8" guy, when Houston Nutt and his staff got here. But here's a look at the 4 guys who were suspended. 3 of those starters, Hawkins and Washington, on the offensive line. But it was the success of McCluster that made the coaches think this short guy might be able to get it done for us.
On 2nd and 9. Mackey on the move and tackled by Nico Johnson.
Nico Johnson, a young man who's getting a shot with the injury to C.J. Mosley, who's supposed to be getting better with that elbow injury. But Johnson had interception last week against Vandy, and he's got some nice closing speed. That was a nice job when Mackey went to turn the corner. Johnson was right there with him.
Alabama says that sometimes their opponent isn't the team across on the other sidelines, it's themselves. Nick Saban, their head coach, saying that we've got a certain standard that we like to play up to every week. 3rd and 14 for Ole Miss. Mackey looking to set up the screen. Finds Jeff Scott, and Scott tripped up way short of the first down by Dante Hightower. And it'll be 4th and long coming up for Ole Miss. They'll have to punt. LSU winning earlier today. And Alabama's defense certainly stout. Great matchup coming down the road between those two teams.
First, take a look at Dante Hightower sniff out this screen. He doesn't wait for it. He immediately saw it. It was great recognition. Still not quite as fast as he was before his ACL injury back in 2009, but that was just a veteran guy with a great read.
The rugby-style punt. Gets a great roll down to the 8-yard line. 92 yards away as Alabama starts 1st and 10 when we come back. And we're going to tell you a little bit about the culture of the area here in Oxford, Mississippi, and a literary guy.
ESPN's College Football Primetime. Brought to you by State Farm for auto, home, life, and banking. Get to a better state. And Dr. Pepper. With 23 flavors, Dr. Pepper is always one of a kind.
A look at the famous residence Rowan Oak, the home of William Faulkner, the American writer, Nobel and Pulitzer Prize winning, some great writings. And we had a chance to get a tour of his residence yesterday and listen to some fascinating stories. Wright Thompson from ESPN.com and ESPN the magazine hosting a nice little get-together there yesterday. What a great time.
And Wright knows how to pick people to put out the spread. That was as good a meal as I've had in a long time.
1st down and 10. Richardson straight ahead. Boy, you can do all the squats you want, Ed, and do all the bench pressing you want at 450 and 600 pounds, whatever. But when you run like that, it really makes sense, doesn't it?
Career
3 touchdowns
high.
tonight.
3 touchdowns. He had 181 yards against Florida, which was a career high in rushing. And I used to have a coach who used to say the most important part of a play is the finish, meaning when it's about to end, what do you do right before it ends? This guy is one of the best finishers of a run that I've seen in a long time in college football.
Takes the handoff again. Breaks 3 tackles, gets away. And Trent Richardson picking up a couple blocks. He might take it. Cuts back, stays on his feet. What a move. Shake it, bake it, and he makes it. Touchdown.
Every Heisman campaign has a play that people talk about. This might be it.
Great point. A 76-yard career-long run by Trent Richardson. Over 100 yards now for the 6th consecutive game. So many superlatives to describe this run.
The power runs out of the arm tackle. And watch at the very end, when poor true freshman Sinquez Golson thinks he's got him. No, you don't have him.
That's a TKO right there. Back with more after this. Ed, great blocking by the guys up front, but also downfield from the receivers on this
To
run.
get this type of run, you need some help. And watch number 2, DeAndrew White, and number 4, Marquise Mays downfield. They're smelly getting a block, but just great hustle by these guys. And when you have a back like Richardson who can make moves like this, whew, you're going to keep fighting downfield. What a wonderful job.
Senquez Golden here, number 21. Boy, he didn't know that Richardson had power steering and power brakes. And he slammed on it.
Good job by White, a true freshman, getting down there. That'll make the offensive coaches, wide receiver coach Mike grow awfully happy.
The 6-yard line. This is Tobias Singleton. And Singleton gets rocked at the 20-yard line. Folks, join host Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, Greg James for BCS Countdown Sunday night as they unveil the first BCS poll and analyze who are contenders versus pretenders. BCS Countdown presented by Discover on ESPN Sunday, 8:15 Eastern, continuing on ESPNU at 9 o'clock Eastern time.
Well, that's really going to matter on November 6th after Alabama hosts LSU. Both teams, kind of a little quirk in the schedule, both teams have a bye the week before they play in Tuscaloosa. So they both should come in healthy with a couple of new wrinkles on offense and defense. That's going to be an unbelievable matchup.
I'll ask you who you like in a minute. And a sack, and a fumble, and a recovery by Alabama. Courtney Upshaw with the big hit.
And Upshaw just goes right by right tackle Bobby Massey. You know, watching him yesterday on tape, Upshaw is so good with his hands. Massey had good technique, had a good pass set, but he jammed him right in his chest, and then he pulled him by. And he'll occasionally dip underneath, which is tough to block, but a good job all the way around. Good power rush, and then finished it by stripping up the ball.
No coincidence that they're number 1 in the nation in scoring defense and rush defense.
I'm not surprised to see the third-string running back Fowler in the ball game.
Karen under center. Hands it off to Fowler. Good hand walk inside the 10 down to the 8-yard line. Sawyer making the stop on the play. A gain of 7 yards. Dawson Fowler, Eddie Lacy, Trent Richardson have all got touches at the tailback spot tonight for Alabama. 7:05 to go here in the third quarter of play. A dominant third quarter for the Alabama Crimson Tide, who now have 31 unanswered points after trailing 7-0, which seems, Ed, like an eternity ago. 2nd and 3. Here he is again. Fowler strolls in. Touchdown, Alabama. And the rout has begun in earnest. Fowler with his 2nd rushing touchdown of the season and the 3rd of his career. They just keep coming at you in waves, all set up by the big play by that guy right there. Number 41, Courtney Upshaw.
Let's take a look at the running styles, the 2 different running styles. Richardson, I've been talking all night about how good he is and how wide his base is when he gets into the open field and when he's running at defenders. Now notice the difference when Fowler on a touchdown run, just as effective, he scores, but watch his feet, how close they stay together as he goes through. Doesn't quite have the same center of gravity down low, still effective. But Richardson just has an ability to get those feet so far apart, lower his center of gravity, and cut. Again, different running styles, different body types. A lot of that has to do with just genetics. As you can see right there, why I think Richardson is such a special back. The ability to go through and have that base so wide to make the cuts, the power, and the low center of gravity.
Fowler on the last touchdown. Richardson, meanwhile, with a career-high 183 yards, and the meter still running. This off a 170-yard performance last week in that win against Vandy. And, well, looking ahead a little bit to next week's game, or the game November the 6th between Alabama and LSU. That's going to be a great matchup. LSU handling Tennessee today.
And Tennessee comes to,
who do you like?
Alabama next week. I like Alabama.
Why?
I just think offensively they're more dynamic. LSU has had to kind of invent. They've got a good running game, but they've kind of had to invent their passing game. And I just think A.J. McCarron and some of these young receivers that are starting to come up, like White, Mays, the development of Mays, Smelly starting to get involved. I just think they can do more things offensively against, again, the 2 defenses. I think you flip a coin which one's better, but I think when you stack up the offenses, Alabama is more dynamic.
Well, everyone's got that one circled on the calendar. November 5th. They get LSU at home coming off of a bye week. How does the bye week factor in? You think that's a big deal?
I do. But both teams have it.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for both teams. So I think it ends up being a wash. I think after next week's game, we'll look at how many injuries there are. That'll tell you which team's going to get more help from the bye week.
Enrique Davis swarmed by a host of Alabama tacklers. This game was 7-0 at one point for Ole Miss, and Alabama storming back with 38 unanswered points.
And it's these types of games where for Alabama, when you start to dominate like this is where guys like Fowler, some of your younger players, start to get real time on the road, an SEC game. And this is where, for a program, through this year, through next year, the year after that, you hear that term program? Well, that's where getting these guys in builds up the depth and guys who have game experience across your entire program.
Timeout on the field. We'll be back to Oxford, Mississippi. It's all Crimson Tide rolling big. There's a look at Roanoke last night. We had a great time, Ed. We had chicken. They roasted a pig. And if you don't believe me, folks, I'll tell you, I had a lot of pork on my fork last night.
You know what? The catfish BLT sandwich, that was the winner for me. It was a piece of catfish, some nice bacon.
And Ed Cunningham, folks, has a revolutionary technique of peeling chicken off of chicken wings. It allows him to eat them quickly and efficiently. Trust us.
I can't tell you about it. It's patented. It's my intellectual property.
Chickens around the world are running for cover. 2nd and 12. Running for cover like quarterback Randall Mackey back at the 1-yard line where he's sacked. Courtney Upshaw again. Well, we heard some great stories getting back to last night about William Faulkner and his trips out west to Hollywood and being on the golf course at one point with Clark Gable and them exchanging quips. Had a great time. Mike Thompson, one of the great writers of our time. We're ghosts in that house apparently too. Huh?
Felt a little something when we were walking around.
Out to the 4-yard line. It's Devin Thomas. Yeah, Ghost playing Chopin on the piano downstairs. If anyone would have said boo, I'm running out. Approaching 5 minutes to go, and Ole Miss going to have to punt once again. That's been the familiar refrain since the end of the first period. Alabama's defense giving up just 7 points, which is right on average. With that rugby-style punt. It's a good bounce, but a low-line drive. This is Hanks on the return. And stopped up at about the 41-yard line. You know, in the SEC, Ed, they talk about having to control the line of scrimmage. These two teams do it best.
Defensive line for LSU, I think, might just be a notch better than Alabama's. I think Alabama's better at their second level and their linebackers, and the secondary I give a little bit because of Tyrann Mathieu and what he can do. But again, I think you just have to think about these two teams. When you look at them offensively, I just feel like Alabama is going to be able to handle what LSU's gotten much better offensively than they were last year. I feel like they're better coached with the change that they made there. But I've just been impressed watching Jim McElwain and his offensive staff, what they've been able to do. And coming into the year, big questions. You lose Greg McElroy and Julio Jones, and anything, I think this offense is better than it was last year.
Underneath is one of the offensive weapons they're starting to utilize a little bit more. Kenny Bell. They're doing it by committee with Hanks, Bell, White, and Marquise Mays. Rassel makes the stop, but a pickup of 17 yards on the play.
One of the things that Jim McElwain told us they've been looking for is a little more production out of what they call the X receiver, which is the furthest receiver away from the ball. And now Bell runs down, and you have up top Brandon Gibson. So they're getting a bunch of guys rotated in there to find somebody, giving their good underneath, Smelly and Mays, but they're trying to get someone. Maybe White's the guy to start stretching the field a bit for him like Julio Jones did.
Darren, the trigger man, hands it off this time to Fowler. Lowers his hat and runs over a defender for another Alabama first down. They've got depth everywhere.
And this is great management of the running back position. I think a lot of people might be thinking, for Alabama fans, of course, Trent Richardson probably done for the night, and he should be. But why is Eddie Lacy not back? Well, remember, Lacy has a turf toe. And those are the types of injuries, one misstep, and it comes back or sets you back exactly to where you were, where Lacy had to sit out. So these two young men, done for the night. I think this is perfect management of your personnel by Alabama.
3:20 to go in the third. Between the tackles, it's Fowler again. Fowler picks up about a yard on the play. It'll be 2nd and 9.
And there's a guy, Chance Warmack, that when I put on the film yesterday, just jumped off the page. Watch this big guy when he pulls. How big and explosive. Watch him run through his block. Knocks Mary right down. He is. Line him up for all conference. Warmack is a guy 320 pounds. He's got a big, powerful lower body. He's very explosive. When he gets guys, he just runs through them. This is a next level offensive lineman. Good feet. Did you see him step around those guys? Just a big, powerful man who finishes blocks. I was just talking about finishing runs. He finishes blocks.
Alabama Crimson Tide make sure that the running backs acknowledge the big guys blocking for them up front. Part of the program's philosophy. 3rd and 7. Get to the 3 for a first down. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Brandon Gibson with the catch. This Alabama offense detonating in the second half so far. An impressive third period with 2:08 to go still. Mississippi had any thoughts of getting into this game as the third quarter began. They're certainly dispirited and disheartened right now. A lot of dap on the sidelines for the guys in white and crimson.
Well, this is when it starts to be fun for the older guys. You've got to figure, get ready for a bunch of very, very clean white jerseys to start coming out on the field. And all the youngsters need to start walking up towards the coaches and elbowing them a little bit. Hey, coach, can I have some run? Oh, sure. Do not be afraid. If you're a young player, do not be afraid to ask one of your coaches if you can go in the ball game.
You know, we had a chat with Mark Barron at free safety and talked about why he chose Alabama. It really rings true when you speak to the players en masse. To a man, they all say that we learn things at Alabama that we feel at other schools we probably wouldn't learn because of Nick Saban's background, various schools he's been at, and also in the NFL.
Of course, Nick Saban, defensive coordinator under Bill Belichick from 91 to 94 at Cleveland. Went on to be a head coach at Miami, decided to come back to college. Was not surprised by that. You just have more control. You can develop the players more, and that's something that Nick Saban, in his background playing and coaching for my old coach Don James at Kent State, he really enjoys the development, not just on the field but off the field of these young men. You just don't get that experience in the NFL.
Nice return up to the 40-yard line by Tobias Singleton. He's had some nice kickoff returns tonight, and you know, the coaching tree of Nick Saban has spawned some pretty successful coaches.
It's amazing. You think two guys in his own league were assistant coaches in Dooley and Muschamp. Of course, Jimbo Fisher is offensive coordinator at LSU, and Mark D'Antonio, who coached under him at Michigan State. And this is very similar to Don James, who gave Nick Saban his first job at Kent State. After he graduated, his wife, Nick Saban's wife, was still in school, didn't know what he wanted to do, and he said, Don James saw something in me that I didn't know. I didn't even think I wanted to coach. And he said, hey, if you're going to be around, why don't you be a GA? And he said, I learned so much about running a program and player development both on and off the field. He still does a lot of the things that he learned at Kent State under Don James.
Pass complete to number 28, Corvick Neat. Gain of about 3 on the play. It'll be 2nd down and 7. Saban's team looking prime for another national title run this year.
And, of course, playing for Don James at the University of Washington for 5 years. There was never a minute that wasn't planned. There was never anything. You never had a question what you should be doing, be it in the classroom, on the field, during a road trip. You always knew exactly what was going on. And the whole theory is leave nothing to chance. And that's still what Nick Saban and his staff lives by.
Mackey's going to run out of bounds. The former junior college quarterback, you know, Nick Saban, a master motivator too. He knows what buttons to press. Last year, after they lost that crushing game against Auburn, the comeback by the Tigers to defeat Alabama, he had laminated cards made up and gave them out to each of his players. Now, the picture on that laminated card was a picture of Cam Newton and Nick Fairley of Auburn celebrating in the midst of Alabama players. And the credo is never again. They want to remember that and not ever let it happen again. Jeff Scott with a nice run. As we approach a minute to go, a 14-yard game.
And now for Ole Miss, they'll likely be sitting at 2-4, and unfortunately doesn't get much easier for them going through the SEC. It's just been a tough couple of years for Houston Nutt and his staff. They just haven't been able to get the quarterback position right. Of course, last year they pick up Jeremiah Masoli, who was kicked off the team at Oregon, brought here, the quarterback in the system, all junior college. And you mentioned earlier Barry Brunetti, who transferred from West Virginia, and Zach Stout, who's a junior college transfer. They just haven't had any luck bringing in a quarterback, the most important position in the game, obviously, been able to develop a guy in their system.
You can say this for head coach Houston Nutt of Ole Miss. A lot of people play lip service to character, but he followed through with it in suspending one of his best players, Brandon Bolden, one of 4 players suspended for a violation of team rules. There's Mackey with the throw. Little trickery, incomplete. Jamez Logan, the intended receiver. With 3 seconds to go in the 3rd quarter. It took a lot for those 4 players, especially Brandon Bolden and the offensive lineman we referred to earlier. in this maybe the most important defining game, Ed, of the season for Ole Miss.
And when we talked to Houston Nutt, it pained him. He said he lost some sleep, wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do, but at the end of his decision process, he said it wouldn't have been right to let those young men play. Of course, they wouldn't share with us what happened. It was a unspecified breaking of a team rule. But you're right. You have to commend a guy who's on the hot seat. Let's make no bones about that for his job here at Ole Miss to make a decision against an opponent. And you lose a guy, Bolden, who may have an NFL future.
Pass incomplete, and that's been the story of a very dominant third quarter for Alabama, outscoring the opponent 28-0. You know, the University of Mississippi Blues Archive here in Oxford contains the world's largest collection of blues music. Blues is perhaps the only music indigenous to the U.S. and a type that began in and around the Mississippi Delta area. B.B. King, for one, of course, is an artist that immediately comes to mind. You don't want me to sing Lucille or anything for you, do you?
Go for it.
Not in my deal. I'll tell you, they're singing the blues right now here in Oxford, Mississippi for the home team. Start of the fourth quarter, down 45-7. The Rebels actually led 7-0 in the first quarter. 4th and 11. Mackey completes it for the first down, and a nice catch by Brassel. Redshirt freshman who's been playing both ways tonight, and Janine Edwards telling us earlier that he was so exhausted at halftime he needed IV.
And he can scoop. We saw on that first drive when he ran right by the safety Will Lowry. And they'll continue to find ways to get him the ball, but as they told us and watching him on film, his future's likely at cornerback on defense, but right now he's given the spark.
Just in 10 defense coming after him a little bit. Mackey escaping downfield and caught at about the 2-yard line. What a grab once again by Nicholas Brassel. A 24-yard gain, 1st and goal.
Brassel stays alive, and you start to see why the players around this team were so excited about Mackey.
Time hands it off to his tailback, Devin Thomas. Cut back to about the line of scrimmage. Would be 2nd and goal. Watkins making the stop.
Second receiver running a medium drag route, stays alive. That time a sure catch. Saw him drop a ball earlier. That one got stuck in his hands. And there he is. Yeah, he needs it.
Out of the shotgun this time. Mackey into the end zone on the fade. Jump ball incomplete. Broken up nicely by Daquan Menzie. Let me ask you this. Alabama's defense averaging only 7 points against per game. Is this something that as a player you're conscious of? You're trying to stop them here?
Huge. Absolutely huge. And I think that's why you still see the first, what a nice leap. Wow. By Menzie. Just timed it perfectly. But I think that's why you still see some of the first teamers in there. It absolutely matters to Alabama not to let Ole Miss score here.
3rd and goal. He hands it off. Scott can't get there. Stopped up short of the end zone. 4th down and goal coming up. Kirkpatrick making the tackle.
I like a quarterback draw here. I'd like something where Mackey gets to run with the ball. He's a dynamic guy. He makes people miss. It feels like they're going to pack in. Maybe remember they ran that option for the first touchdown. So maybe another option by Mackey on this play.
4th and goal. They hand it off, and the defense intransigent, holding, stoning Mississippi. Davis didn't make it in, and Alabama taking over on downs.
And the lesson here, don't run between the tackles against Alabama.
It's all about the roll tide right now. Back with more in a minute. Welcome back, everyone, under the lights. It's college football prime time. SEC on ESPN, and that is Terrell Brown, number 57, with the distinction of the largest man in college football, 6'10", Ed, 376.
He's got a future at offensive tackle.
Or power forward.
Yeah.
Randy Kennedy. I'm not sure if they had Midnight Madness here last night, but surprised Coach Kennedy hasn't gotten his hands on him. Maybe he has. Got a new quarterback in for Alabama now on 1st down and 10.
That's Philip Sims.
Yep. 14, the quarterback, 6'2", 217-pound freshman from Chesapeake, Virginia. How did he grade out on that play, Ed?
Well, when it's a straight ahead run, you tell your defensive line to bury. The problem was after he buried, he got pushed back another 2 yards. So you don't want to get pushed back, but that's awfully hard for a guy that tall to play defensive line. 6'2", 6'3" guy gets underneath his pads. He might go for a long ride.
Did the same thing on that play. Ran his way. Fowler just dragging a couple of would-be tacklers out near the 25 and beyond. And another 1st down on the 23-yard line. It's kind of challenging for the big guys, huh?
They're just burying on there. And the offensive line, that's all you can do is just keep pushing them. But I'm impressed with Fowler. Watching him last week against Vanderbilt. For a big guy, you think about these running backs. Richardson 224, Lacey 220, and Fowler at 246. But runs, he's more nimble than a guy at 246 pounds you'd expect.
Pretty good numbers tonight. The relief of Trent Richardson, who's done. Going for over 170. Here's Sims, completes it. Goes to the redshirt freshman White. Couple of slick moves out by the 28-yard line. And you know what? When you look at Brown and Fowler, Richardson, it really underscores the quality of athletes that they attract in the SEC. As we have players shaken up on the field. From top to bottom, I'm not sure that you're going to find a conference that can amass this type of personnel physically anywhere in the country. If you missed Trent Richardson's little workout video we showed you earlier, you'll understand what I mean. Back with more right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Oxford, Mississippi. I'm Mark Jones, along with Ed Cunningham and Janine Edwards down on the sidelines. It's the SEC on ESPN, and there's a look at the map, the reach of the Southeastern Conference, which now includes Texas. And when you look at the number of 4-star and 5-star athletes, according to ESPN.com, those are the hottest recruiting areas: Florida, Georgia, and Texas.
And people talk about why the dominance of the SEC. Of course, they've won 5 national championships in a row. Well, now you bring in Texas. You've got to figure it's going to get better. We mean bring in Texas, meaning teams are now going to start going to Texas A&M, which is not far from Houston. Houston had 140 Division I football players out of that state. And I think it's more than just the fact that they get a lot of good players. I think it's because they get a lot of good big players. We talk about the dominance at the line of scrimmage, as we've been told that Wayne Dorsey is the injured Ole Miss player, and they're bringing out the cart. Unfortunately, that's the second injury tonight with Marcus Temple already breaking an ankle. But
you were saying it's not so much the skill players or the quarterbacks, receivers, it's more the big guys, the interior linemen?
Well, you still get guys like Trent Richardson and you know, guys that can play at the next level as skilled. But I think when you match up the SEC against the Pac-10, nice hand for Mr. Gordon.
Got it in that splint.
Things going from bad to worse for Ole Miss.
There is number 7.
Yeah, he put his right arm down as he was trying to brace his fall, and you could see him grab it right away.
Been a difficult night for the Rebels.
Going back to the point of the big athletes, when you stack up the SEC to the other major conferences, they have more big athletes, I think, in my opinion, in the SEC. What I mean by that is guys that are 6'4", 290 pounds, that can run, can move in space. You have those in other leagues. I just think you have a greater concentration here in this league, and I think that's why when you see LSU beat up Oregon, Auburn beat up Oregon last year, yeah, Oregon has a lot of speed, but they just don't have the big athletes where when a team decides to run the ball on you with power, to play defense. And then I think the other part of this, not only is it that they are in a large populated area that high school football is a big deal, but I also think in the coaching world, those guys want to coach where they're going to coach the best players, and they want to coach where it's the most competitive. So a guy like Nick Saban, when he has a choice to coach anywhere he wants when he's coming back from the NFL, chooses to come back to the SEC. And I think you see that across the board, not just with head coaches, but also with assistant coaches. Jim McElwain comes all the way from Fresno State to coach here. And so I think he did some of the best players and some of the best coaches.
Well, there's one of the best players on the field tonight. Fowler on the loose. They're trying to run him down and can't reel him in. Touchdown, Alabama. They've got guys on the line of scrimmage on both sides, and they got the skill players. They've got it all covered at Alabama. That's a career-long run for Jalson Fowler. 69 yards for the score. Tell you what, those third-string guys are pretty good, too.
Yes, they are.
The extra point is good.
Well, Alabama has been ranked in the top 5 in recruiting every year that Nick Saban has been here as the head coach. All that depth starting to pay off.
Down at Tuscaloosa, you can hear them cheering right now at Dreamland and uptown, downtown, and all parts in between. Back with more after this.
ESPN's College Football Primetime is presented by Triple Hops Brewed Miller Lite. Taste greatness. And in part by Mitsubishi Motors, where finding advanced technology at a great value is normal.
Welcome back, everyone, to Vaught Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, Mississippi. More bad news for Ole Miss as the senior Wayne Dorsey suffering a fractured forearm. So reports Janine Edwards from the staff downstairs. They were looking for Dorsey's parents to come and let them know. So the rough night continues for Ole Miss. .10:08 to go in the fourth quarter. The score getting out to 42. And I believe his knee was down, so with that, we're going to check in with Wendy back in the studio. Wendy, what's going on?
Mark, thank you. We've got a Dr. Pepper 10 conference update, and it takes us to Auburn, Alabama, where the Tigers are hosting the Florida Gators. Barrett Trotter here, complete to D'Angelo Benton, 25 yards in the score. It's now a 7-6 ball game. Somewhat surprisingly, at the half. Elsewhere in the SEC, Georgia over Vandy, 20-7. LSU, no problem at all with Tennessee, and South Carolina just edges out Mississippi State, 14-12.
Tough loss for South Carolina today. Marcus Lattimore looks like he may have injured his knee severely. That would be a huge loss.
Just up Highway 26, though. Presbyterian College bouncing back nicely. Harold Nichols, head coach there. His team defeating Gardner-Webb today, bouncing back from that loss to Stony Brook.
And why are you so interested in Presbyterian?
All about the Blue Hose, man.
Of course, Mark's son accepted a basketball scholarship to Presbyterian. Congrats on the success of your son and your wallet.
Yes, sir.
Staying a little heavier.
It's all good. 2nd down and 8 coming up for Ole Miss. And the quarterback, Mackey, brought down about 3 yards shy of the first down. Well, hey, folks, great day of college football on ESPN concludes with a key matchup in Pac-12 Conference. Number 18, the Sun Devils against Darren Thomas and number 9, Oregon. College Football Primetime presented by Hampton Hotels on ESPN and ESPN3 tonight at 10:15 Eastern Time. Also streaming live on WatchESPN.com and the Watch ESPN app.
And Arizona State looking like the class of the Pac-12 South. Oregon, I think, is going to be in a tough race. Stanford, of course, right in there. But Washington, my alma mater, looking much better than they have in many years. Chris Polk, a NFL-level running back. Offensive line's playing better. It's going to be a good race in the North before all is said and done.
Can't believe that either of us haven't slipped up and said Pac-10 this year. That's the surprise.
There you go. You just did. But going back to the Georgia win over Vanderbilt, and of course South Carolina potentially losing Marcus Lattimore. Of course, we'll learn more in the next couple of days. South Carolina owns the tiebreaker against Georgia, but Georgia's schedule going out is awfully easier. Yeah, it's an easier schedule, and we saw them last week against Tennessee. They're playing. Forget the 0-2 start. They're a better team.
The East is wide open.
And it's easy to say, well, there's nobody in the East who can compete against LSU or Alabama. And that may be true, but the problem is, and that's why coaches hate conference championships games. I mean, think if you're Nick Saban of Alabama.
You're talking about just a one-shot deal?
Exactly. And you go through the season, you go 12-0, or if you're Les Miles, you go 12-0. And the teams you had to beat to get there, Penn State, I mean, just name the teams. And then all of a sudden, you've got a week to go in and play a team that really has nothing to lose. And all you're trying to do is think, we've got to win this game. And so it's easy to say that the teams in the West this year are much better than the East.
Let me ask you this then. Who would you think is the best team suited to, from a personnel standpoint, as we look at the Eastern Division, who matches up best with either LSU or Alabama?
I think Georgia does, because I think they're getting better defensively. That 3-4 defense that they're now running their second year in that system, I think that they're much better. And Aaron Murray is such a good quarterback. He's calm under pressure. Isaiah Crowell looks like the real deal at running back. I think Georgia presents the most problems for either LSU or Alabama if they come out of the West unscathed.
Well, that time Randall Mackey didn't come out of that play unscathed. Sacked by 3 Alabama players. Billingsley, one of the first ones to get there. Under 7 minutes to go. Been a rough night for Randall Mackey, who started so favorably. As Mississippi, barring a miraculous comeback, will fall to 2-4 on the season and 0-3 overall in conference play.
It doesn't get much easier as they play Arkansas and then at Auburn. So very rough year for Houston Nutt. And, you know, frankly, if he doesn't get to a winning season, wouldn't be surprised if they make a change ultimately at the head coach. This is not, it's a tough place to win in the SEC West.
That's underneath, juggled and caught. Brassel got rocked after he squeezed it by Thielen Jones. You know, this Alabama football team means so much to the community in Tuscaloosa, and we saw a lot of that on display in the earlier part of this year with some of the inclement weather and the tornadoes coming through in late April. And Nick Saban and his coaches and his players got together and really helped to rebuild not only the infrastructure, but the mentality and the emotions of some of the people there in town.
And it kind of feels like when New Orleans won the Super Bowl after Katrina, where a win in the national championship game, an SEC championship and a national championship, because football is so important to this part of the country and specifically Alabama.
Yeah. Janine Edwards has more.
Well, Mark, you're right. You know, companies go to great lengths and great expense to pay for team-building trips for their employees, but the University of Alabama had the ultimate unity-building experience with that tornado that was thrust upon them. So tragic, with 47 people being killed, including 6 Alabama students, and one of them was the girlfriend of Alabama snapper Carson Tinker. And as you said, there was so much community outreach and players assisting in the cleanup, and other players from other schools such as Kent State were even sent to help. And it was a remarkable thing when the Kent State team got a standing ovation by Alabama fans when they took to the field for the season opener. And one player summed it up best when he said, you know, there's a lot more to life than football. And guys, this Alabama team has experienced firsthand being called for a higher unifying purpose.
Yeah, certainly great to see, and great spirit down there in Tuscaloosa. Approaching 5 minutes to go here under the lights. Alabama in control 52-7 with 52 unanswered points. Philip Sims in a quarterback. Hands it off to Blake Sims.
And Sims looks like he's got a top-end gear, doesn't he? He's listed in...
What do they go, 8 deep?
It's unbelievable. You know, and I go back, you know, talking to Coach Saban about his experience under Don James, and I cannot talk enough about what Don James did for my life as my head coach in college. But, you know, he shared a story about how he played under Coach James at Kent State, and then he coached under him as a graduate assistant, and he didn't know any different than running a program like that. And it was, for me, I played for Coach James and I went to the NFL and unfortunately played in a program that wasn't that well run, and it was such a shock because I assumed that that's the way everything. I came from a great high school program, and so I assumed every place was run like that. But that's part of it. You know, when you talk to Nick Saban about recruiting, he says, I love it. I love going out, and he's a very good salesman. You know, I think a lot of people underestimate. He's a very intense, serious guy. Yeah. And I think sometimes you think, oh, he wouldn't be good in a living room, and he's very good. He closes big recruits. Parents trust him with their kids. He's a very fine recruiter. And it just doesn't have that gregarious personality like some guys have.
Hey, we saw him in the movie Blindside. I thought he was very convincing the way he went into that living room. I'm not sure how much of that was actually acting.
Number 95, offense, 5-yard penalty, second down.
Well, you know, when you got these kind of players, I'm not sure how much acting you have to have. Guys like Fowler, who's the understudy, and I put that in quotation marks, of Trent Richardson, who had 183 yards today.
And I give a lot of credit to Alabama pulling Richardson out. This is about the season, not about a Heisman campaign. You leave Richardson in, he probably runs for next week against Tennessee, get into the bye week, and then the big game against LSU.
Sims in the quarterback. Hands it off to Sims in the backfield. If you're hoping to hear from A.J. McCarron, the starting quarterback, number 10 for Alabama, you might actually get to speak to him or hear from him if you're a member of the media, which usually isn't something unusual. But when you're Nick Saban in Alabama, well, let's just say that he's been a little bit protective of his second-year quarterback. He has had very limited access to his quarterback, given it limited access to his quarterback to media members. And he actually was poking the local media recently, saying, hey, listen, if you guys keep asking, I might keep him away a little longer.
Well, you think about the pressure that is on you. There's a lot of pressure on these young men, especially at a place like the University of Alabama. There are so many people who get such joy out of this team. It can be a lot of pressure. I don't blame them.
Sims giving the coach a little bit more joy. A nice run.
Do you know what they list Sims' position as?
What's that?
Athlete.
Athlete.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
They just kind of throw him in there, huh?
Well, and he gets up a little banged up.
Yeah, you should see what the sixth-string guy looks like. He's pretty good, too.
Let's watch how he lands, though. I wouldn't be surprised if he landed on one of those shoulders.
Wow, what a cut.
Yeah, and look at that speed. But watch the very end of the run. Looked like he landed awkwardly and got up, and their tending looks like to that right arm.
Almost 400 yards on the ground, and Alabama just going to take a knee from here on in. Richardson, Lacey, Fowler, Sims. Impressive backfield for Alabama. An impressive lineup on Sunday NFL Countdown starting at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Presented by IBM. That's ESPN Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
Well, in a tough week for Ole Miss. As Janine reported earlier, suspending 4 players for violation of team rules. And now they lose 2 defensive starters.
Key guys.
Dorsey, breaks his forearm, and Marcus Temple, who was playing a wonderful game, fractured ankle.
So Alabama will improve now on the season to 7-0. You know, their closest margin of victory so far has been 16 points. And when you look at the schedule they played, especially their conference schedule. That's pretty amazing. Going into Florida and getting a convincing win, and another convincing one tonight, and shutting out a pretty competitive Vanderbilt team as well. 52-7 the final score. Houston Nutt going to regroup and get back to work tomorrow. A.J. McCarron, starting quarterback, with another impressive night for the Crimson Tide. Coming up next on ESPN2, college football scoreboard. Greg Cunningham and our entire ESPN crew. I'm Mark Jones, saying good night from Oxford, Mississippi, and another convincing win by Alabama. They're about breaking ankles and breaking hearts, hurting everyone else's feelings. Now let's send it back to the studio. So long, everybody.